So it's almost exactly 10 years ago. My first wife, Sophie, she was terminally ill with ovarian cancer, and her parents lived Castle Eaton, which is a few miles away from here. And we were living in Germany at the time, but she was at home, essentially to die. And her parents contacted Prospect at that time to actually get a little bit of respite. She was in a lot of pain, and so she came in for a couple of days whilst actually I was still in Germany. And then a few days later, I came home, and unfortunately she was rushed in, Prospect. She was declining very quickly. And she died on the 4th of April, 2008, so almost exactly 10 years ago. Not in the slightest. She'd actually done a lot of research into how she wanted to spend her last moments. And I think in the end, although originally she wanted to die at home, I think she felt that it was the best place to come. And Prospect Hospice, I think, provided a very dignified and fitting way for her just to slip away. Her respite care was fairly limited, to be honest. She only spent a very limited of time here at Prospect Hospice, but it was, I think, a very important couple of days. She was allowed to come in just temporarily for 2 days while she was managing pain. And I think it just gave everyone a little bit of breathing space, herself included. I think she felt a little bit of a burden at that point. And so to come in and have 24-hour care available to her in a quiet and uplifting space, I think was great. Sophie's expectation when she came into Prospect, I think, was not that great. What she experienced was, I think, fantastic in terms of the way that she was made to feel. Knowing that Sophie could come to Prospect Hospice was really important. We were camping out essentially at her parents' house. We'd come back from Germany because we knew that she was going to die pretty imminently. And although she did want to die at home originally, I think she found that was probably not going to be the right thing. You didn't want to actually create a problem for her parents. No, knowing the room where she had died was always going to be something which would just live with them for however long they stayed in that house. And so actually coming to Prospect Hospice, being cared for by the professionals, I think was very much the best way for her. Yeah, having flexibility as to whether to come to Prospect Hospice or not actually was a huge advantage, because at that time of her life, those last hours and days, things change rapidly in your mind. A decision you make at breakfast time could actually change by lunchtime, because suddenly your emotions are moving so fast. The care that Sophie received when she was here at Prospect Hospice was pastoral. There was no clinical care, really. She had reached that point where her body was shutting down. So really it was a question of making sure she was comfortable, that she could die with dignity and with the family around her, and allowing her just to slip away as peacefully as possible in a quiet and appropriate surroundings. I think the one thing that I would tell people about Prospect Hospice is that this is not a morbid place. This is a bright, wonderful, uplifting place. The mood when you walk in is not somber, it's celebratory. Very often I think people understand that going to die is a very sad time of people's lives, but it can also be very reflective and sometimes a time to think and just celebrate all the really good things that those who are at the end of their life have brought. to you and their families. When you look at the funding and the investment which is made in new drugs, in research, it's phenomenal. When you look at funding and the money made available to end-of-life care, it's paltry. Prospect do the most fantastic job in terms of providing that end-of-life care. And it's a huge gift to give people that appropriate and dignified death. Memories of those last few hours are very, very clear in people's and families' minds. And I think having their loved ones able to die in a dignified and calm and peaceful way is a huge gift. And that's what Prospect Hospice does.